Yes. So it can refer to anything that you create with your brain. Okay. Anything from writing a poem to drawing pictures, designing a logo, or inventing something. Intellectual property laws help protect those creations so people can benefit from their own work, and it prevents others from copying it unfairly. So intellectual property is everywhere, even in student projects. So we often ask students to create work for us when they're in class, research projects, multimedia projects, all of those things are considered intellectual property. These are some types of intellectual property, what they protect, and some examples of it that we see in school and different places. So the first one is copyright. That's creative. Copyright protects creative works. Examples in school we see are student essays, videos, and music. Again, when students are creating those essays, they're writing poems for us to show the different mastery of different types of poems. When they are creating those multimedia projects, coding even could be considered a creative work. So that would be fall under copyright. They also have trademarks, which would protect logos and brand names, things like the Nike swoosh and the Apple logo. Patents, inventions and new technology, science fair invention, coding could also fall under this too. If students go as far as getting something patented from their own creative work in that field of technology or some kind of invention. They also have trade secrets, so confidential information. So you could think of a secret recipe in a project. You could also think of that in places like KFC. You know, they've got a secret recipe uh, for the seasoning that they use for their chicken. So those kinds of things would be trade secrets, very, very confidential information. If they tell you, they've got to kill you. Okay, so let's talk about one of those, one area of copyright. One area of intellectual property, copyright. So, what is copyright? Tell me what you know about copyright.
I know it when I see that little bitty C. It's a way of helping someone's property to let others be put on notice that if you use that, you are subject to penalty or monetary or something like that because you are possibly, if you use without permission, way in which another person who has that copyright say that you can use it. Sometimes it's limited because if you buy some other product of theirs or something, they may give you permission to use it in a specific way. But if you go outside those parameters, it can be very costly.
Yes. Well, that is perfect. So it's legal protection, right? For anybody's original work. And it could be in any form, books, music, images, videos. So absolutely, you want to give creators exclusive rights to reproduce and distribute and display their work the way they want to whom they want to. And when you violate that, you should definitely be penalized for that through the law because it is a legal protection. And it applies automatically upon creation. So unlike a patent where you've got to apply to the patent office for exclusivity, this applies automatically once the work is created. So why is it so important for us to have copyright? What benefits does someone have when they have copyrighted material?
Well, it's possible that they have monetary deal, but then they have notoriety based on that copyright. Their business is known for that particular whatever.
Exactly. So it's going to encourage creativity and innovation. And we add to what you've just said. It's going to protect their property, their intellectual property, fair compensation for the creator, and then prevents any unauthorized use of that work. Okay, so let's turn our attention to understanding what fair use is. So this, I think, applies quite a bit to educators and how we use material in classrooms. So when we think about fair use, we think about how we use other people's works, how much of it, for what purpose, and whether or not they're compensated. So fair use is going to allow limited use of copyrighted materials without permission. So you can use copyrighted materials, but there are certain guidelines you have to follow in order to use that material. It aims to balance the rights of the copyright holder with the public's right to access information. So if we had to go through someone's lawyer every time we wanted to use some material, would definitely slow down our access to information just because of the cost and the timeliness and so forth. So fair use is designed for education, commentary, news, and research. In particular, we're going to focus on education here. And again, it must meet certain criteria to allow teachers to incorporate that material for instructional purposes. So there are 4 factors of fair use: purpose and character, nature of the work, amount used, and effect on market value. So when determining fair use, courts consider these 4 factors most important. So purpose and character deal with whether or not the material is educational or commercial. The nature of the work revolves around it being factual or creative content. The amount used focuses on a small portion or significant portion. So how much are we actually using of the work? The effect on the marketplace, does it replace the need for the original? And when we talk about fair use, you can think of things like teachers pay teachers. When you buy a license for yourself to use a work created by a teacher on that marketplace and you share it among your colleagues, then you have replaced the need for the original. So if you buy one and share with 5, then the creator doesn't have the opportunity to earn financial reward for those 5. You could talk about the amount used, small portion versus significant portion. Now, I know you're good at this when you're in class. You use small clips, excerpts to stimulate discussion and analysis in your classroom. So that's a perfect example of fair use, using small portions of a work. And we'll talk about purpose and character, nature of the work as we go through. So let's talk about some common misconceptions about fair use. So if it's online, I can use it. If I credit the author, it's okay. And for educational purpose, anything goes. Have you heard anybody say any of those things?
Repeat that last part.
For educational purposes, anything goes.
No, but I do know you still have to do it in accordance to what the copyright specifically says.
Well, I know that when I first started using things online, I guess I didn't really think about copyright, fair use, and so forth. So if it was online, I felt like I could use it because people would put it out there if it wasn't okay to use. Same thing with if it's if you say I got it from Jane Doe, it's okay if I use it, even though Jane Doe really did expect to get paid for it. I felt like if she put it out there and I give her credit for it, it's okay for me to use it. So, so sometimes, if you just credit the author, it doesn't automatically make it fair use. Okay, so here's some examples of fair use in education. Like I said, that's something I know that you do all the time. You use short clips from movies for classroom discussion, quote small portions of text for analysis, sharing images for a school project with proper attribution. So, how did you come to use this in your classroom instead of showing a whole movie to make a single point?
But honestly, a single point is a waste of time. But when you use that 3-minute clip, I never have used the 3-minute clip 3 minutes consecutively. I've used a total of 3 minutes, but I would break it down, but I would get it to the point where it's adding to the message that I'm trying to convey. Or I may use it like 45 seconds to engage students in a discussion, try to predict what's going to happen in the next 30 to 45 seconds, and things like that. What I have wanted to always leave the students is after that 3 minutes, and I literally stick to the 3 minutes or less. I would literally poll the kids and see how many would want to see that movie or whatever. And they say, I do. Okay, then you can see it on your own because copyright says I only can play 3 minutes of text without, having to pay for it and without infringing on copyright.
Perfect.
Or fair use.
Perfect. Okay, so then you can tell me what fair use is not. It's not copying. Yeah, go ahead.
I know 3 minutes has not changed within the last couple years. I know music, you're only supposed to get about 30 seconds or use it 30 seconds. And sometimes you're not even allowed to play those tracks in your in your complete presentation because it would exceed 30 seconds. However, we have a duty to be in high ethical standards. So breaking copyright and breaking fair use, that sends a dangerous message to our kids. We need to lead by example, not just by what we say and hoping that they figure it out, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So if you copied an entire chapter out of a book and gave it to your students to use, you would be sending the wrong message about respecting other people's work. By saying it's okay to if someone writes this book to copy the pages out of the book without paying for it, so that person doesn't get paid for it. So downloading and distributing full copyrighted songs, that used to be really big when people first started getting iPods and iPhones because you could download music. Napster, all of those type of platforms let you download full copyrighted songs and listen to them without having to pay for them. So yeah, that is exactly what fair use is not. So let's talk about ways we can be respectful of other people's work and still find what we need for our classes. So Creative Commons and public domain are two that will serve our purposes. So Creative Commons licenses allow creators to share their work with specific conditions, while public domain works are free for everyone to use because they're no longer under copyright protection. So things like Shakespeare and Beethoven aren't under copyright protection because they were created before we had copyright laws. There's some works that people eagerly wait for the public domain to apply to. Um, Things like the Steamboat Willie from Disney. He was the first version of Mickey Mouse. Well, he's no longer under copyright protection because that copyright period has ended. So anybody could use him now. He's fallen into public domain. So let's talk about some places where you could get that information. So this is just a list of a few resources to find copyright-free materials. Some websites you can go to for different things. So Unsplash is a place to get images. So on this website, you can just search for images. If you want pictures of a sunset, you just type in sunset, and it'll give you different images of a sunset. This is all royalty-free uh, images. Over 13,000 pictures, 127 illustrations, and so forth. So lots and lots of material over there. If you want music as a background in a video presentation or music when you're just in class, maybe free music archive will give you free music. It is not the latest music, so you're not gonna find Drake on here. But if you want some jazz to play in your band presentation on jazz, oh, here's some Billy Ocean. He's fairly well-known artist. Desperado. I've heard of those people. You can play some jazz music in class. These are all copyright free. It's all copyright free music. Project Gutenberg, great for reading and English teachers. When we want some books and we don't have 150 copies of the book in the library for us to check out. We don't have that in the book room. This is a great place to go for kids to download and read online these free ebooks. All kinds of books. No special app needed. There are audio books as well, and here are thousands of books. So all you've got to do is look for a book this way. They're adding more and more audiobooks to the project all the time. We talked about Creative Commons a second ago. Creative Commons, it's an international nonprofit organization that gives us I'm sorry, a place to get material, images. Images especially is what I use Creative Commons for, so that uh, I'm getting images that have been placed out on the web for us to use that have been given to us by the creator with limited use. So OER, Open Educational Resources. teaching, learning, and research resources in the public domain. So if you're interested in a particular topic, you can search here. What are you looking for? Subject, arts and humanities, maybe. And then just search, and it'll give you different kinds of resources. If you want to do some professional development, that's one way for you to do it for yourself, to enhance your knowledge about a topic. You can definitely use it for teaching resources too. So if someone mentions to you, well, hey, I want to use something, but I don't know where to go to get copyright free material, something that's going to not violate fair use. I don't know where to start. These are just a few places to start. So just some best practices for us. Always check copyright policies. Some schools have their own copyright policies, to make sure that teachers are following the copyright and fair use guidelines. At one school I worked at, the copy clerk was our person. She was always checking to make sure that what we were using fell within copyright guidelines. And if they didn't, she would tell the principal, who would call us in and make sure we understood what we were trying to do was not kosher. So sometimes it was very annoying, but as I got to be an educator for a longer period of time, I appreciated her and the principal for making sure I understood as an educator what I could use and what I couldn't use. And always, when in doubt, ask someone, ask a colleague, ask someone who would know, someone who, like you, who uses material the right way and who knows the law, and always provide proper attribution. All right, so quick question for you. Is this fair use? Can you read that for me?
Case study is fair use. Mrs. Smith uses a short 3-minute clip from a documentary for discussion. The clip is used only in the classroom and not uploaded online. She uses the clip to prompt discussion and analysis among her students. I would say discussion. I would say yes, if it's from a public domain. And if it's not, I'm sorry, I read it on mute. Let me do it again. Case study, this fair use. Mrs. Smith uses a short 3-minute clip from a documentary for discussion. The clip is used only in the classroom and not uploaded online. She uses the clip to prompt discussion and analysis among her students. I would say it is if it was in public domain and it wasn't like Disney, where Disney does not allow you to use any of their stuff.
So yes, that's absolutely fair use. Okay. And that one.
Case study, is this copyright infringement? Mr. Johnson copies entire chapters of a popular novel for his literature class. He hands them out to his students for reading them out. He has just perpetrated a fraud and violated copyright infringement.
But he uses it for educational purposes.
But he's misusing it for educational purposes.
So yes, absolutely copyright infringement. Absolutely. So where do we go? Because we need to know what the right thing to do is. So we need to know what the laws are. Copyright Office will tell us. Creative Commons, another place to go to for resources. And then fair use evaluator tools. give us a way to use a checklist to create to check to see if we're doing the right thing with people's creative works. Okay, so there are 5 questions up here for discussion. I want to select one that we absolutely discuss, and then I'm gonna let you select one that you want to discuss. Okay, so how can you help students understand that their creations have value? And why is that important?
Well, how can you can help students understand that their creations have value by exposing them to fair use policies, copyright, allowing them to create logos, small businesses, even while they're in school, where they can actually see their own, their own works being used in a way that is not only satisfies an assignment or something like that, but actually can be used in the real world. Because a lot of times people leave their talents on the table and don't copyright logos that they use all the time or something like that. Generally, the little sketch artists may do that, and then they'll sign their names, whatever, at the bottom of pieces that they do. But everything that a child does has value. You can copyright just about anything, unless you see it in like something like OJ, because it's so tritely used. This old orange juice, Mr. Simpson, God rest his soul, could not copyright OJ because it was just so general. And but I just think anything that kids do, even the little drawings that they make, they're copyrightable. Everything that they do has value. That's what I would teach them as well. Right.
And why is that important that they know their creations have value?
It's important because if in fact they copyright it, they need to know who's misusing or using their works without permission, or could be using it in a manner in which it was not designed to do.
Okay. I'm going to add to that just a little bit, that if students can understand that their creations have value, then they'll learn to respect other people's work as well. That it took them time and effort to create that poem, that picture, that project, and so forth. Then absolutely, if they think that their creative work has have some intrinsic, extrinsic value, then the same would apply to somebody else. Okay. So of the other 4 questions on here, pick one and you can answer that one.
Hey, let me add just a little bit more.
Go ahead.
Before I continue. It's almost like respecting the rights and property of others by not touching their backpacks and things like that. So if in fact they have a work, if they know that they have value, then they should respect the rights and privileges and privacies of someone else by not utilizing their works without proper notice or permission.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, what classroom activities could be used to teach copyright or fair use? That's a real easy one for me because our school district has us completing the start of school modules to introduce us to policy procedures and the way things will be run in our district, locally and on the federal level. I would always let the kids know that the Chromebooks that they're using, the laptop that I'm using, by the district, I have to abide by certain rules. I can't assume that that's mine. It's just mine to use. And I say that because, and this is a sticky one, but it's true. Whatever I create on a district issued laptop, Chromebook, whatever device, if it's during school hours or I I created it on their device, it belongs to them, even if it's copyrighted. And so I let the kids know you can't use somebody else's work without permission. And then I would say things like that. And so I would tell them, so I don't add proprietary, and I teach them what that is, proprietary informational or instructional strategies in my lesson plans because they belong to me.
Right.
And then I've also shown the students that even if you are creating a presentation, a PowerPoint, or a Google slide presentation, do not use any copyrighted material unless you literally have permission from the author. And I showed them that, a letter that I wrote, an email that I wrote to, I think it's Dr. Tierney Thompson, when I was completing my doctorate. I wrote to her because I wanted to use a survey that she had modified and created and modified. And she gave me permission granted. Told I was a doctoral student at Dallas Baptist University, that I wanted sort of what my treatise was on, and asked if I could use her permission to use her survey. And she responded, "I'm honored that you would do that, permission granted." And that is also in the appendices of my treatise. So I show them things that I've actually done so that they can see it tangibly and know that it's just not some abstract out there in the cloud, but it's something that we must do and we must abide by, because we as Texas educators have to adhere to some ethics.
There you go.
Of being a teacher.
That's a great real world example. Okay, so let's talk about some real quick key takeaways. So copyright law protects creators and users. Fair use allows limited educational use. We want to always verify permissions before using copyrighted works. Great example just given. Utilize public domain and Creative Commons resources. And all of this falls under intellectual property. Oops. So if you don't have any questions for me, thank you for your time and attention today. Those are references I used.
I have one question.
Certainly.
When teaching a lesson on copyright, what happens to a teacher who refuses to adhere to it and may modify or alter or cover up where it says copyrighted material? What can happen to them if they repeatedly violate fair use and copyright?
I think that's a good question. That may depend on where they work. What does their district say about using that kind of material? If the creators come after them, then there are consequences legally, financially for them. If that kind of information is discovered, and certainly, they create students then who have no appreciation and respect for other people's work. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Because like I say, it's different, especially, because I know on the collegiate level, when students are submitting work, uh, and I notice it's a little bit different, but they use different platforms like Turnitin to kind of run the work through a process to see even if they're not necessarily copyrighting it, but if they're plagiarizing. So I'm trying to see how that fits, if it does. But I do know you just can't use someone else's work without adhering to the guidelines which have been established.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again. We've come to the end of our time together. You have no idea how much I appreciate your participation today.